desktop.
It's MOR. Should I go back? Look at it. Effects.
Yeah, it was, I think. Yeah. Probably was that.
Oh, yeah, I was so disappointed. Walk down to the end.
Okay, having on to, yes.
A little down at the
Yeah.
That's the one that concerns
Right. So I think so. I'll just respond to them that we'll be putting your information in the database website, and there'll be individual. Put in.
Josh, no, Mike.
Great. Oh, garbage. Is it just my stuff? Oh, there's just. Oh, okay. Hey, what about the? Oh, we do the same thing. Well, we can talk about it.
Sorry?
Okay, so take them off for now. Yes. I have to. It's off.
I will. Hold on.
Oh, in meeting. Right. I have such a bad track. Like I.
Actually.
No, I think.
Oh, well, mine was a.
That one. Mine was.
Oh. So Josh, SGA, let me know that, have a bill that's sold from catering as a, that's supposed to. So I don't know if it's on y'all's radar to do, so I.
Hi, everyone. I call this meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. We're going to start with the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Josh?
Can I please add CS mini fund allocations to the agenda?
Yes.
I move to add the CS mini fund allocations to the January 20th, 2025 USAC agenda.
Second.
Josh motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining. With an 11-0 vote, that is approved. Any more amendments to the agenda? Diego, followed by Tommy.
A motion to add resolution for Chancellor Frank to establish student-led advisory council on immigration policy to the agenda for today.
I second.
Diego motions, Tommy seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining. With a 10-0 vote, that's approved.
I motion to add a letter of support for the undocumented community at UCLA to the agenda.
Second. Second.
Tommy motions, Nico seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 10-0 vote, that is approved. Do we have any more amendments? Nico, followed by Carolyn, followed by Russell.
Can I scratch BOD/USA allocations, please?
I don't know how this works, but I motion to add a bylaw change proposal about good close good people.
Second.
Carolyn motions, Nico seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. Elisa, was that for?
Yeah, for.
With an 11-0 vote, that is approved. I'd like to motion a discretionary transfer of $1,269.62 for unpaid staff last year. I'll explain more later, but someone second.
I second.
Adam motions, Tamim seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining. With a 10-0 vote, that is approved. Are there any more amendments to the agenda? Alicia, followed by Namrata.
Can I strike
Hi.
Was that strike ARC allocations, Alicia?
Yes.
Namrata?
Hi, I'm proxying for Javi today because they're in Sacramento. I'm their chief of operations, and I also moved to strike bag allocations from the agenda.
Thank you. Russell?
Can we please strike capital contingency allocations?
Are there any more amendments to the agenda? If Namrata, is there another amendment?
No, sorry.
If none, could we please get a motion to approve the agenda? Kiara?
I motion to approve the January 28th, 2025 USAC agenda.
Second.
Kiara motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 9-0 vote, that is approved. Do we have any minutes to approve? Could someone, oh, it's a consent item now. Is there any opposition to approving last week's minutes? Seeing none, those are approved. And we are gonna go into public comment. Just a reminder for everyone that's here for public comment, we have 30 minutes total. Each speaker has 2 minutes to speak once. And some of our community guidelines are challenge ideas, not individuals, use gender inclusive and respectful language. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from accountability. With that being said, do we have anyone that's here in person for public comments? Go ahead.
Hello. Hi, I'm Layla. I'm the chapter chair of UCLA's CalPIRG. And I wanted to share some updates about what we've been working on. But yeah, this week we launched our pledge drive, which is going to be our biggest grassroots push on our Protect Our Oceans campaign. We're trying to expand marine protected areas, which scientists say are the best tools at our disposal for protecting our natural marine resources. So over the course of our drive, we'll educate students, thousands of students, about why our oceans are so important for the health and biodiversity of our planet. In our first 2 days, we've already gotten 185 new members on this campaign. So if any of you have pledged to support us, thank you so much. And if you haven't, we're going to be tabling every day, so stop by and talk to us. But yeah, in addition to our Oceans campaign work, we've also been volunteering to support fire relief efforts through our online fundraisers. We raised just over $6,000 for on-the-ground aid organizations like the California Fire Foundation and the World Central Kitchen. And we've also been doing some volunteering with UNICEF and the Community Service Commission, so very cool. Yeah. So we also just talked to a rep from the EVP's office about your guys' new fire relief plan. So we would love to work with you on that in the future. So please reach out. Yeah, talk to Jonathan. He can share you on our contact information, but also we're going to be here at the next meeting as well. So feel free to talk to us before if you're interested in working. But yeah, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Leila. Is anyone else here for public comment? Yes.
How's it going, guys? If you guys don't know me, I'm the old eBoard finance chair, and I think Josh and Adam already know why I'm here, as well as Jonathan. So for those of you that aren't in the loop, right? So last year's reimbursements weren't fully paid out. There's some people that got them, but also some people that didn't. So we're trying to make sure that every student gets a reimbursement. There are also stipends for eBoard that weren't paid out. I think the chair got around half of hers, but no one else got anything. So I'm asking here for like if there's funding available. I believe there is. So at least that's what I'm under the impression on. Like I'm gonna be honest, like guys, like I'm in my senior year. Like I don't want to be here talking this USAC meeting, like looking at a Google timer, giving public comment. Like I want to like study for my midterms tomorrow, dude. Like, but I feel so strong about this issue, right? I feel like we can't have some people get reimbursements and some people not get reimbursements, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't know how those people that did get the reimbursements got those reimbursements. But like I actually don't know the process they went through. So if that same exception that was applied to them could be applied to every other candidate, I think that would be so amazing. And thank you guys so much. Because like you guys are not responsible. Like I hold you guys not responsible at all. But sorry, you guys aren't at fault. But you guys do have a responsibility to like help us solve this, I think. So if you guys could like meet with me like after the meeting or like before next meeting, like I would be like so like grateful for that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Is anyone else here for public comment? Or is anyone online here for public comment? Sorry? Yeah, will do.
Adam and I can follow up with you via email, Darian.
Is anyone here online for public comments? Seeing none, I'll be closing public comment at 7:15 p.m. And we're going to move on to funding, starting with contingency.
This week, we had a total contingency programming request of $22,009, and we recommend an allocation of $7,012.05 for one USAC entity and 24 non-USAC entities. And I can send that in the chat.
Thank you. Someone motion, please. Kiara.
Sure. Oh God. I motion to. I motion to approve the total contingency programming request of $22,009 and the recommendation of the allocation of $7,012.05 for one USAC entity and 24 non-USAC entities.
I second.
Kiara motions, Tamim seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 10-0 vote, that is approved. Next, we have SFS allocations.
This week, SFS allocates $5,177.31 to 2 USAC entities and 5 non-USAC entities. And I'm also going to put that in the chat right now.
Thank you. Are there any objections to that allocation? Seeing none, we're going to move on to SWC programming.
Okay, so for this week, for the SWC Programming Fund, we have 3 allocations total for tonight with a total of $1,872, all to non-USAC entities.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the allocation? Seeing none, we will move on to ASRF with Chris Spino.
Good evening, everyone. This week, we recommend an allocation of $1,492 to 5 non-USAC entities for ASRF.
Thank you. Are we going to paste it in the chat?
Yes, let me put it along with the TGMF.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the allocation? Could you read out the travel grad mini fund as well?
Yes. This week, we also recommend an allocation of $2,923.17 to 8 non-USAC entities for travel grant mini fund.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the allocation? Seeing none, we're going to move on to CS mini fund with Carolyn. Oh, sorry, not Carolyn. With Claxton.
Hello, CS Mini this week will be allocating $3,231 to 1 non-USAC entity.
Could someone motion that? Tamim.
Motion to allocate 3,231 USD to 1 non-USAC entity.
Second.
Tamim motions, Josh seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 10-0 vote, that is approved. We are now going to move on to special presentations. So we have the UCLA Police Repression Report with Dylan.
Hello, Josh, I think I have a presentation. Yes, thank you. If you can screen share. So hello, USAC members. My name is Dylan. I'm currently a 4th year PhD student in computer science and member of Students for Justice in Palestine. We wanted to present this report that we believe talks a lot about policing on our campus, especially in light of, the spring quarter and this fall quarter. We have been doing a lot of documentation work since the encampment period starting, and we are planning to release a bunch of subsections of different parts of our documentation work with the encampment and the ongoing repression and frankly, terrible environment that UCLA is cultivating and the increasing repressive policies that's happening. Just to give a little bit of background, I'm pretty sure most of us are aware. Last spring, the big thing that happened was the encampment. It lasted for 1 week from April to May. For an entire week, thousands of students camped out in the middle of Roy Squad, demanding the university disclose all investments and sever its material relationships with Zionist institutions, Israeli universities, and corporations profiting from the oppression of the Palestinian people, and also to abolish university policing. Despite mob and police attacks, the encampment sustained these demonstrations for over a week. And there was also subsequent demonstrations throughout the rest of spring quarter and continuing into the fall. I will say that these were a very historical moment at UCLA. Just as a little bit of background, the 1985 South African apartheid demonstrations at UCLA had 50 tents over, it grew to a portion of 50 tents over 2 weeks. The UCLA encampment had 101 tents on the second day of the encampment with an estimated peak of 250. So I think it shows a lot of the momentum that was gained through this and like the real history of student activism. You know, we spent thousands of hours pouring through a lot of the documentation, our own internal documentation, as well as public reports. And so we wanted to present a few things that we believe are relevant to the entire UCLA campus community and also will help you as your role as board members in advocating for students on campus. So if you want to go to the next slide, Josh. So while we want to acknowledge that this report describes a really disturbing trend of police violence on campus, we want to say that is incomparable to the daily struggles faced by the people of Gaza. While injured pro-Palestine demonstrators were able or could receive medical treatment in a well-stocked hospital right here on the UCLA campus, there is no fully functional hospital left in Gaza right now. And so with that background, we want to get into the report. And so if you want to change the slide, we're going to be talking about three main things today. Firstly, it's the policing of protests, especially in relation to spring and this fall quarter, general policing trends on campus, and then the continued repression that's happened on campus. So to start, I want to begin by referring back to this number. If you want to turn the slide, 291 arrests was the final count at UCLA. 291. Over 8 months, UCPD arrested 291 students and community members on campus. This is the largest number across the US. Columbia had 220, an estimated 220 arrests. We had 291. Just to put this into proportion, our count of historical protests on campus, the Vietnam War protests, the South African apartheid protests, Chicanic Studies hunger strike on campus, if you take all of the arrests from all of those protests combined, 291 eclipses that. There's been 220, we count, arrests on campus before this, 291 of pro-Palestine demonstrators on campus in the last 8 months. You know, if we go to the next time, what has stemmed from these arrests? 2 cases of these arrests were charged. One of those cases left one student spending over a week in jail in an extremely messed up situation. For 289 people that were arrested, their status is currently uncharged. The city attorney brought no charges during arraignment and has provided no comment since, leaving these cases in a legal limbo. For nearly all cases, regarding the encampment, the city attorney has 1 year to press charges against any individual. And we wanted to note that even though there has been no information or indication that any charges will be pressed, the If Not Now demonstrations at LAX had charges pressed 11 months following their arrest. So it is still a real possibility. And one of those things, and as a consequence of this legal limbo, those arrested are effectively silenced on campus and are not able to say anything about the conditions of their arrest or anything around their arrest, as it could be used against them in criminal trials. So that means that everyone arrested, if they speak to a UCLA official, if they file a civil rights office report, if they report about their situation, if they talk to 21st century policing solutions, anything like that, that can be used as evidence again in their own criminal prosecution. I will also say that these have a really chilling effect on people's freedom of speech on campus and ability to express themselves. The city attorney has been known to bring charges if you're arrested or you continue demonstrating on campus or in other demonstrations. It's used as like a sort of silencing tool to stop people from actually continuing to speak their mind on campus and use their First Amendment rights. If anyone is aware, there was like an LA Times article of the city attorney deliberately trying to file charges against a pro-Palestine protester just because of the nature of their speech on campus. You know, there was a leaked report. If we go further, next slide, there's been over 50 phones stolen by UCPD, and they have been kept for over 8 months. UCPD has also stolen students' backpacks, keys, car and house keys, clothing, computers. We have made several legal requests to UCLA asking for the return of property. All have been denied. UCLA administration has continually refused to engage on any demands around the return of stolen property. During the encampment itself, reports indicated that over 18 dumpster trucks were filled with student belongings during the cleanup process. While we are still trying to attempt to create a final estimate, we believe that the personal property that was dumped by UCLA well exceeds multiple hundred thousands of dollars, and there is no chance of recovery. Going further, there's been over 60 rubber bullets shot at students during these protests. Additionally, despite police operation manuals requiring aerial flashbangs to be shot well above demonstrators, many students witnessed them being only a few feet above their heads. Indeed, there's also operational manuals regarding pepper ball bullets that were shot. They're supposed to be shot directly in front of you on the ground. They were shot directly at students. And as like a anecdote, many students had to take final exams covered in the pepper ball powder, which caused a lot of people to cough. It causes a ton of irritation, and you know, it like went off during people's finals when they had it all over their clothes and like belongings and stuff. It does not create for a conducive academic environment. I guess later I brought like the casings from one of the aerial flashbangs and also the bullet if you want to see it. But these are really serious weaponry that are being deployed against students on campus that I think is a really big incident of concern. If you want to go next, Josh. We estimate that over 40 protesters were severely injured by police on May 2nd, with over 15 requiring hospitalizations. Most hospitalizations were from rubber bullet injuries, with one student needing to have their fingers reattached, while others suffering severe bone fractures and lacerations. Some of the hospitalizations occurred after police custody, so they were injured in the custody of police for over, I believe, 24 hours, with protesters receiving no medical care while in custody of police. And what I believe is a deep disappointment of our medical system, nearly all protesters requiring hospitalizations were refused field evaluations. EMS wouldn't come see them when they're injured in person when they called like ambulance services. And they were also refused transit, requiring medics during the encampment to drive them to the hospital using their personal vehicles. Upon delivery of injured people to the hospital, including people who are unconscious, some encampment medics reported being mocked by medical personnel at the hospital itself. Next slide. In total, UCLA spent a staggering $12 million on policing and private security during last spring's protest. This is more than a ton of budgets on campus. And, you know, this is all from like, you know, UCLA administration continually cites like they don't have the money for this. How did they get this money for policing on this campus? You know, this is in addition to the UCPD budget increase, and increase in militarization hardware that they received this fall. And for those wondering, less than 3% of the total cost related to the encampment that UCLA spent went toward the cleanup process, with a fraction being spent on the actual graffiti present and cleaning up graffiti. Next slide. So in stark contrast to the 191 Palestine protesters that were arrested, only 3 Zionists were arrested for the encampment attack, with 2 currently with outstanding warrants. For one Zionist, their charge was significantly reduced despite dislocating someone's shoulder on live television. And it's all in complete like video and on live television. And their parents actually bragged about them doing that act on camera and in front of and to a news reporter. In the days following the protests, open source investigators identified over 13 Zionists that participated in an attack, with news reports showing that estimating that over 150 Zionists were part of the overall attack on the encampment. I will say it's really staggering that UCLA has been talking about its investment in like FBI and like police surveillance in order to catch people related to the encampment attack. You know, they only have 4 warrants. And I would like also note that there are a ton of security cameras around Royce Quad and around a lot of the parking lots on campus. We've made several attempts to get that footage, and we've been denied all public records requests related to footage and surveillance. So just to put this bias in perspective, next slide, Josh. UCLA has made 290 arrests of pro-Palestine related protesters who we believe and will document in future meetings and in our overall report that we will be releasing, demonstrated overwhelming restraint and constraint amidst extreme physical and psychological violence versus 4 arrests of Zionists, despite there being a literal mob attack on this campus. In one stat, we believe that this illustrates UCLA's extreme bias on campus. Indeed, in every protest, you know, we've witnessed people being extremely physically violent, being assaulted, rammed into, beaten, in full view of both administrators and UCLA police. Yet, it's always the person that gets beat up, that gets hurt, that gets arrested and subjected to the university wrath. 291 to 4. There's been no acknowledgement or apology. And indeed, if you read UCLA's latest court filings, they are seemingly apologizing for not arresting more pro-Palestine protesters on campus. 291 to 4 is the stat. Now, over the course of this presentation, we're talking about these stats, 291. What does that actually mean? And so we want to give a little bit of an understanding of what does it mean to be arrested on campus. So if you go to the next slide, for pro-Palestine arrests, we routinely notice police exponentially increasing processing time as a retaliation to expression on campus. Despite regularly and routinely being able to process arrests in an hour or 2, we routinely witness arrests taking 8 hours or more. For someone that's arrested on campus around 2 p.m., they get released around 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning. While being processed, arrestees are subjected to prolonged harassment, are zip-tied, sometimes limiting their circulation, denied access to restrooms and water, and just denied access to their basic human rights. We notice that pro-Palestine arrestees are usually transferred from the UCLA jail right on campus to the furthest possible jail, most recently to Long Beach, which is over 30 miles from this location. And they are released sometimes without like a phone. So if no one's there, how the hell are they supposed to get from Long Beach back to where they live at the UCLA campus? Okay, if you go to the next slide. Recently, pro-Palestine arrestees are denied attorney visits and phone calls in violation and of their constitutional rights. And we have learned that this is directly on order from UCLA administration. Alongside arrestees being required to show up in court, which is an extremely draining and ongoing process, which for almost everyone that's arrested has no sight or still has over 3 months before it ends. They are subjected to student conduct charges, which we will talk about in a little bit. And then finally, UCLA Police Department has a policy of doxing every single arrestee following their arrest, even if they don't become charged. As something stunning, UCLA is the only UC campus that we could find with this policy to publish the names of those arrested. Indeed, we sent records requests to all the other UC universities, particularly San Diego, where in what we believe is a good decision, they redacted all the names of students and people arrested. They just gave like the charges and that someone was arrested on that date. The university claims that it will redact those names if there is verifiable harm resulting directly from the publishing of the name regarding the arrest. And despite us sending a letter to UCLA administration following every single arrest from multiple different legal organizations, citing the mob attack, Zionist oppression, and various other sources of doxing on campus, the university refuses to redact anyone's names. And Darnell Hunt recently in our GSA meeting said that it's going to cost them more or whatever. You know, there's never a response or acknowledgement really about the harms that people face because of their own policy to dox people, which no other university or UC has. Just to illustrate this, I would like to read a statement from one of the person arrested on May 2nd. If you go to the next slide, Josh. Firstly, they beat the hell out of some students when making arrests. When they were cuffing us, they yanked the zip tie so ridiculously tight that many people's hands were bloating and turning blue. We are left in zip ties behind our backs for 11 hours, 4 of which were in a bus with no access to the bathrooms. One girl pooped her pants. She would have to be in those clothes all day. Anytime you ask for the smallest of accommodations, they would refuse or tell you to sit down and shut up. They dragged and dragged the booking process so ridiculously, so much so that we had to say as long as possible. At one point, one of the cops straight up told me, "We're making this really uncomfortable, so you don't do what you did again, because your charge will probably be dropped by the district attorney." Next slide. So just to take a really brief side about your rights and police interactions, because we want to continue educating everyone, and I think it's your duty as student leaders to educate your colleagues about like your rights when you're being arrested. Firstly, you have the right to refuse consent to search, with silence being interpreted as implied in consent. In almost all situations, it's best to vocalize your non-consent to search. Secondly, you have the right to an attorney, but you also must vocalize that. We have been seeing that despite people being vocalizing their request for an attorney, UCLA PD, as we mentioned, has been ignoring that. But it is civil rights violations, and we do submit complaints every single time. And then finally, you have the right to not talk to the police, especially about events leading to your arrest. And during the booking process, you don't actually have to say anything more than what's on like your government issued ID. During the booking process, they usually ask about injuries or other things. And this is usually not in your benefit. They want to make it so that when you sue them, they have like a list of injuries based on what you said during the night of. For all Palestine-related cases at UCLA, SJP at UCLA has and will do its best to support you. We've provided legal support to everyone that's been arrested, and we've also provided much other support. Now to pivot into talking about generalized policing on this campus. So we got really interested in the policing data, and since May, we created a data set of all arrests and related charges since May 15th. And there's been 594 arrests on campus. You know, the Palestine ones is much smaller because we started on May 15th. The encampment was until May 2nd. And then May 6th was another big arrest day and so on. But if we go to the next slide, I think something that really surprises a lot of students on campus is just the geographical vicinity of where arrests. We plotted where every single arrest is made. And it actually distributes across the entire LA area. You know, and it's, you know, it goes all the way down into Torrance. They've made our arrests before. If you go to the next slide, I think this is just like kind of a known fact at this point, but UCLA PD replicates racist and sexist trends. Despite making 5% of the Westwood population, Black people are the plurality of people arrested by UCPD on a daily, you know, over the course of the last 6 months. I don't think this is anything new, but it's just continued replication of racist and sexist trends within our communities. One thing I want to talk about particularly is curfew. I think it's become my newest obsession and something that is extremely underemphasized, and like no one talks about curfew on this campus. So if we go to the next slide, I don't know if anyone remembers, but on May 6th, UCLA PD cited curfew as a reason for detaining 43, I think it was around 60 actually, protesters that were sitting in a parking lot. It happened at 5:59 a.m. The curfew goes from 12 to 6 a.m. And UCPD cited curfew as a reason to be able to detain for an extended duration of time and eventually make their arrest, although they did cite on another charge. I think many in our community learned about the idea of curfew, like everyone else. I was clueless about curfew, but it is a very real policy, and it has really terrible effects upon the UCLA community. We go to the next slide. We've gotten a bit of statistics about curfew being used. Since May 15th, 21 cases arrest at UCLA have directly cited curfew as a reason for their arrest. We believe that 32 of these cases, it is possible that curfew was used, but it wasn't directly cited in the arrest. So for some of these cases, even though the people are arrested together, one person gets curfew, another gets like another charge. And we believe that the UCPD used like the other charge to try to drop the curfew charge because it's not like the strongest charge. But this has a real disproportionate impact on the campus community. And one of the things that we've done is we have our mutual aid program. We work with a lot of the unhoused community members every Friday. We have been providing support. And we've been having conversations with our unhoused community members, and a lot of them have cited curfew as a way for UCPD to frankly like harass community members and arrest them. We've also spoken to community members who have had like curfew cited, and then UCPD uses curfew as a way to like search and interrogate them, and then they find like a drug paraphernalia somewhere near them that's completely unrelated to them so that they can escalate the charge against them. Based on the data, we believe that curfew is being weaponized by UCPD as a pseudo stop and frisk policy. If you go to the next slide, we actually tried to investigate curfew policies, and we were unable to find a similar curfew policy at any other university or being used as extensively at any other university. We looked at the CUNY system, the SUNY system, the CSU system, University of Texas, University of Florida, University of North Carolina. None of these universities had a system-wide curfew policy, and very few universities actually have it. At University of Texas at Dallas, it was instituted just for the pro-Palestine demonstrations, and even then it was unpopular. Even within the UC system, we looked at other UC campuses, and we couldn't find in their police logs within the past 60 days, because you only have to release the policing logs within the last 60 days, a time that UCPD cited curfew at any other campus. That is not UCLA. UCLA cites curfew regularly. Just to point out the insidious nature of curfew policies, UCLA has no clear boundaries. Is the grass on the Kant a sidewalk, or is it UCLA policy? There has been arrests for curfew cited for that area. Is the hospital at UCLA curfew or not? Going to get medical care, you can be subjected to curfew policies. It's not used against everyone. It's a ridiculous policy, but we believe it is used to be able to subject to someone to like an interrogation or a search, and just in general, increasing policing on this campus. Just to go to the next slide, another aspect of policing on this campus is 626 campus bans, which was resurrected by UCLA administration following the encampment. The Academic Senate noted 626 campus bans resurgence as unusual. These bans happen when you get a 626 bans is from the entirety of UCLA campus, and it's up for up to 2 weeks. Every pro-Palestine protester has gotten the maximum ban. And as part of the 626 bans, there is no required evidence. There is no required hearing. The administration can just decide that you're banned from campus, and you're banned from campus. There's nothing you can do. Next slide. Part of the 626 bans is campus includes university housing. So whenever you get a 626 bans, you're technically evicted from your own housing, and you're not allowed to come back to your own housing without the threat of arrest. Many of the people who received 626 bans were students on campus, and especially those who lived on the Hill. A lot of people who receive this, they also miss classes, they miss final exams, they miss their work, and there is no excuse. Like the university is not supposed there's no requirement to give like a alternative final exams when you receive one of these campus bans. Yeah, if we go to the next slide, in the last 6 months, UCLA has sought to increase the threat and use of 626 bans. In repeated statements, UCLA has refused to clarify the process or determination among these bans. Academic Senate asked for guidance around these bans, and UCLA basically refused and gave extremely vague answers. On June 11th, the day following major protests on June 10th, UCLA administration expanded the capability of these bans, allowing more administrators and just police officers in general on campus to administer these bans. It used to be only Michael Beck and Gene Block could administer these demands, but now it's like 10 to 15 plus whoever police officer is designated by the police chief. It goes without saying, but virtually every pro-Palestine protesters, regardless of their actions, now receives these bans upon their arrest as a release condition from jail. Finally, to talk about student conduct, we have witnessed 136 student conduct charges being issued to students on campus, virtually all against arrested students. For those arrested, the student conduct charges, I want to say, poses significant risk because anything you say and any statement that you say is recorded and can be used against you during criminal prosecution. So people are being forced to choose their academic well-being or their their personal well-being. And the UCLA administration has made no flexibility around the ongoing criminal charges in relation to the student conduct charges. Of 136 cases, most were dismissed with agreement of resolutions. Continuing to hear good news about some of them being dismissed. We see about 20 going to student conduct hearings and many are remaining unresolved. If we go to, and then just to point out, the insidious UC Regents policy mandates that everyone arrested be subject to investigation for student conduct charges and subjected to like the student conduct process. UC policy says that the act of being arrested isn't an actual violation of the student conduct code. So like you being arrested on campus doesn't mean that you violated the student conduct code. And this leads to extremely vague alleged violations because they're not able to use the act of you actually being arrested by the police as a reason of you violating the code of conduct. But if we go to the next slide, just to talk a little bit, in all the cases that we've seen 0 individualized evidence. All student conduct cases have proceeded based solely upon UCPD's statement. Like one officer makes a statement saying that 30 people were seen in this area doing X thing, and you just assume because we arrested you that you were a part of those 30 people. That's like the extent of the evidence. They never mentioned anyone's name explicitly, and like, you violated student conduct code. They don't give you like pictures of like you violating student conduct code and disrupting a final exam or whatever. They just say, oh, someone did this on campus and we arrested someone in this area. We believe that you're responsible for this. We've made many requests to get evidence, including through the Public Records Office and through the Student Conduct Office. All requests are denied. All requests are denied. During the student conduct process, over 10 students had their degrees withheld for some duration or were unable to advance for candidacy, which is like a PhD requirement. For a lot of the people who were withheld degrees, this has had severe financial consequences because like of job promotions and other things like that require a diploma in order to get like a certain promotion. And several people have talked about it. And then the Student Conduct Office has also committed multiple FERPA violations within the process. It's kind of funny because they talk about in the FERPA policies about like you as a student or you as a TA or you as a grad student, if you violate FERPA, like how serious it is. There's no mention about like an administrator violating FERPA. Like if Julio Frank violates FERPA, there's no UCLA policy around that. And the people who violate your FERPA, assistant deans, vice chancellors, They're also expected to be neutral prosecutors and judges throughout your student conduct process. You know, there's no conflict of interest. You violate someone's FERPA, you would think that let's put it on someone else's record. No, they're going to be the same person for the entire process. Just to go to the next slide, just to illustrate another sort of big bias. You know, we've never heard of a Zionist facing student conduct charges on campus, despite the extreme violence that students have faced in many reports that students have submitted. You know, 136 to 0, 291 to 0 to 4. In case anyone needs to cite UCLA's extreme bias against pro-Palestine protesters or pro-Palestine viewpoints on campus, I think this is a pretty clear argument. Just to talk a little bit about faculty. There was an academic senate subcommittee that unanimously found that the faculty conduct charges were unsubstantiated and failed to meet even the basic basic standard to proceed with discipline. Lecturers and staff were subjected to a forced interrogation process and sham investigation through human resources, which decided guilt through identical letters based upon one random UCPD officer's interview. If we go to the next slide, one thing that I want to point out is really about the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests. Following the pressure of the 2020 Black Lives Matter protests and increased pressure upon UCLA administrations, especially the use of Jackie Robinson Stadium for LAPD to arrest students and different people protesting around Black Lives Matter. UCLA administration made a concerted effort to reduce the effects of policing, especially with respect to campus protests and demonstrations on campus. At the time, I believe that the administration recognized that a punitive and militarized force were incompatible with the campus's academic environment. And while I will argue that the UCLA administration's efforts to reduce policing on campus were kind of shallow, they did at least recognize this, and there were several reports talking about how we should reduce policing on campus, including the one that we include up there. But over the last 8 months, all of these efforts have been completely and silently rolled back, and there's been this remilitarization and regression in campus policing policy. If you were to look at the LAPD after action report, they essentially blamed the Zionist mob attack on UCLA administration's policy surrounding the reduction of police on campus with the Black Lives Matter protests, and called for a rethink of agreements to allow more LAPD presence on the UCLA campus. As many on campus can describe, there's been a constant surveillance on campus, and it cultivates repressive conditions that are incompatible with a safe, inclusive, and diverse academic environment that I think we're all striving to build. To end this presentation, if we go to the next slide, I just want to say a few words about the Office of Campus Safety. Our understanding is this office exists solely to increase campus policing on campus, to increase repression and militarization. The office has zero transparency. All records requests to this office are basically denied without input. And there's no, when they're appointing this, unlike every other appointing administrator that they have to appoint, they don't have to make a committee that has student voices or faculty voices involved. There is no respect for shared governments, and the people in this office has never shown sympathy or empathy with people that are punished as a result of their actions on campus. The newest appointee that was announced last week, Steve Lurie, was the person responsible for the police response to the Palestine Solidarity encampment. Lurie was the one who responded and was on site during the Zionist mob attack. He was the one who waited hours, instructed the police to not intervene for 3 hours following the start of the Zionist mob attack. And he's also the one who said that, who allowed the attackers to leave basically unharmed, and to this date, no consequences. Now, Lurie has a $52,000 per month salary and as one of the biggest LAPD apologists, is expected to actually protect us on campus, improve public safety. I think this is the biggest joke. In the following meetings, I think we're going to be presenting more because we have a lot of information. I think our report has like 300, 400 pages at this point. But I think there's a lot of stuff about like different Zionist attacks or like administration's culpability, the whole medical system. Honestly, a lot of the stuff on campus has been extremely flawed. And we've, because of the charges, we've been very careful about as an organization responding to a lot of these charges. But I think it is very worthwhile in having a frank discussion about like the effects of policing, administration, and others on our campus. For all of these items, I think we're hoping to work with everyone here to really address a lot of these items around policing, especially the ones that we mentioned today, and like student conduct and like policing presence on campus. We'll be reaching out. And our hope is that we can build really a strong student coalition to combat like a lot of these policing changes and regression in policies on campus. Yeah, but I wanted to thank you all for your time. No, that was very long and also pretty all over the place in terms of like a lot of different topics. And honestly, a lot of these topics you can go in very real detail about. But if you have any questions, I'm here to take them. Thanks.
Are there any questions? Josh?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for coming out. That was a very informative presentation. I just had a quick question about the public record requests. What's been the reason that you guys have been given for getting rejected for those?
Yeah, I eliminated the slide, but we've submitted over 200 public records requests to this university. And one of the things that they consistently cite is that anything that gets put into a UCPD investigatory file is exempt from disclosure. And they also cite an administrative disclosure, like anything that's deliberative, they're able to exempt. We believe that they're like really over broadly using this with anything related to like policing on campus. Like security footage, I think like one of the things is we wanted to know the appointment process for some procedures and they denied it. We're looking into possibilities, legal possibilities around these requests. But yeah, they've been very broadly citing different things.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. If you want to shoot me an email, my email is ivp@usac.uslay.edu. I'd love to help you guys out with that.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much, Dylan, for coming by. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to potentially working with you over the coming weeks. But thank you so much. We're now going to move on to officer reports. Mine will be completely written. Josh?
Okay, just a couple of things. Let's see. So Thursday is going to be our off-campus housing fair. I know I've been promoting this a lot lately. If you or a friend are looking for an off-campus apartment for the next school year, we're going to have 19 different property owners on campus advertising the apartments they're going to be leasing for the upcoming school year. And it's going to be from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. So please come out and support. And then also our CAB chair sent all of you an invite to our networking event that's happening on February 25th. Sorry, no, February 24th at 7 p.m. So if you're available that night, please fill out the RSVP form. And then lastly, applications for facilities commissioner are open. We put out a graphic on Instagram, so please repost that if you are able to sometime today.
Thank you, Josh. EVP?
Hi, everyone. So we have a lot of updates. I'm going to start with last week. So Javier and our UC relations team were at the Regents meeting last week in San Francisco. Some topics that were discussed there were the status of police accountability boards on each campus and how many of them are inactive, the state budget and its effects on students and cuts towards the UC, the Regents raising tuition, and also important impacts against health policy and funding of healthcare programs. They also had a campus safety discussion. The Students of Color Conference is this weekend in UC Berkeley. I know a lot of you are going to be there, so I'm really excited to see you all there. Javier could not be here tonight because they are currently in Sacramento meeting with state assembly members about budget priorities since the initial budget was just published. So they're lobbying currently about the Cal Grant Equity Framework, disability service provider funding, health equity, basic needs, and transfer implementation funding. They will also be meeting with President Drake on Thursday in coalition with other EVPs from all the other campuses to discuss campus safety, ICE and privacy concerns, UC disaster response, and budget deficit concerns. And then finally, an event plug from our office. Our access team has been working with the transfer office to plan the transfer advocacy open house happening in the Bruin reception room next Monday from 3 to 5 p.m. So I really hope to see you all there and plugging your orgs and your advocacy efforts.
Thank you. Diego?
Everyone, everything will be written.
Chris, oh no, Tommy.
Everything will be written.
Espino?
Everything will also be written for me. Thank you.
Robbie?
Written for me as well.
Carolyn?
Sorry to break the streak. This will be really quick, hopefully. If you all haven't seen, Bruin Relief Initiative volunteer opportunities are live. It's on the Volunteer Center website. It's been out on social media, so please register to volunteer if you're interested. We're also looking for site leaders at each of our sites, so please spread the word. On my office report, I have like a blurb that you can send out to your office, or if you're interested at all, sign up for one of the sites and let me know, and you can be one of the site leaders that just make sure that volunteers are enjoying it and just communicating with me if there are any issues. But yeah, hope to see you volunteer.
Thanks, Carolyn. Alicia?
I'll do really quick updates. Kickoff for Hip Hop Appreciation Month and Hip Hop Congress, our Hip Hop Congress series is this Thursday from 11 to 2 p.m. at Bruin Plaza. Tommy the Clown will be doing a performance. If you're from LA, you know. And if you're not, you should get out and see. And then dance. And then, yeah, just a quick rundown. Our workshop event for Hip Hop Congress is on the 6th in the Art Gallery from 6 to 8. It's going to be an MC/producer workshop. So if you're interested in like knowing how music is made, specifically in hip hop, you should go. And then our film and panel event is on the 13th in the Grand Salon. Our annual fashion show is on the 20th in the Grand Ballroom, and our explosion concert is on the 27th in the ballroom as well. Yeah, we're also hoping to do diversity tour to Pasadena, Altadena area, which will be half a volunteer shift at the National Day Labor Center, the job center, if anyone knows. So we'll be volunteering with them for half of the tour and then supporting businesses in the Altadena area for the second half of the tour. So providing free transportation and free food for that. More updates to come on that once we confirm with Endylon. But yeah, other than that, I'll have everything written.
Thank you. Nico?
I'll keep it written.
Yara?
Just a few things. So the Bruin Relief Initiative campus portion, or on-campus portion, so still collecting donations throughout the rest of this week. So we still have our 2 locations outside the IM field and then also at KREC on Kinross. So in our Instagram post, we still have the list of all of the items that we are taking, and we'll work on distribution next week. So yeah, still taking for that. Had a few meetings this week about some upcoming initiatives. And then I have some dates coming up. And also we solidified the Westwood Food Co-op as a partner org. So thank you all for your support with that the past few weeks. And then I put some dates below. So put these in your calendars. We have our winter conference on community health. That'll be later in February. Bruin Necessities has their menstrual hygiene fair February 12th in Bruin Plaza, their dental hygiene fair February 19th. And then we have a collaboration between Planned Parenthood and the Black Latinx AIDS Project on March 5th. And then this week is also I Love My Body Week from our committee Body Image Task Force. And so they had a great event yesterday. They have a Scale Smash event tomorrow. And then we're collaborating Sexperts and Heart, the outreach program under ASH for Sex Week, which will be week 6. And then the last thing I want to bump really quick is Bruin Run Walk. So every year they have an annual 5K collaborating with, if you haven't heard of it, the Painted Turtle. It supports children and families with chronic illnesses. And so it's a fundraising 5K. It's really fun. It's on campus, starts in Wilson Plaza. Registration is open. So I put the link right there. It's really fun. You can do it with your clubs, make it a social. But yeah, it's like a 5K on a Sunday in spring quarter, and it's a good cause. So wanted to boost that. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Tamim.
Everything will be written.
Orlando.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're all having a good night. Just one final time, I'm going to update you on the new registration closed last week. This week, Seoul has its annual, its quarterly one-stop event where we host 2 days of virtual workshops. If you're interested, visit our Seoul website, but we'll have things on signatory workshops, funding, youth safety training, etc. For those of you may be interested, go ahead, shoot me an email or just visit the Seoul website. That's all I have. Thanks.
Jessica.
Just a couple quick updates from SGA. So we are still working through trying to close out the audit. So we hope that we will be reaching the near end of that very soon. But in the meantime, you may also be getting some outreach from the team on just different things that we're trying to develop for student organizations to streamline the rec process and make things more accessible to everybody. So be on the lookout for communication on that. And if anybody has any outstanding rec issues or any questions, please, you know where to find us. You now have all hopefully met Shoja. So, you know, just be on the lookout for things to come from SGA.
Lori.
Oh, I put in the chat, nothing for me because I'm homesick.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Hope you feel better. Jonathan.
Hey, hi, hello. Just a couple things from me. I dropped it in the Slack today, but just a reminder that nothing should be going on your agenda that is not ready to be seen by the public. According to your bylaws, and the point of releasing your agenda 2 days ahead of time is so that the public can look at the things that are on your agenda and then decide if they need to come to public comment, et cetera, et cetera. So please refrain from doing so in the future. If you have things that you need to add last minute, you all know very well how to add things during the agenda approval. So moving forward, please keep that in mind. And then my second and final update is a fun one today. You all may remember way back in the day, you wrote letters to yourself and to see how you were doing midterm. And so I have these for you today. Please grab them on your way out. I'm not going to give it to you now because I think it's going to be distracting. If you're not here in person, feel free to come by our office anytime. But I hope that these can offer you a little bit of inspiration and hope and drive to push through the end of your term here. And if you need anything, you know where to find us.
Yay. Okay, we're gonna move on to new business with Jago's resolution to reinstate the Advisory Council on Immigration Policy.
Everyone, I'll keep this really quick, but I will try to keep it meaningful too. If I can just pull it up really quickly. So I'll just give a little bit of background. Essentially, in 2017, when the Trump administration first entered, I guess you could say, then Chancellor Jean Block implemented the UCLA Advisory Council on Immigration Policy, which was under the Office of the Chancellor, so basically him, in March 2017 to analyze new federal immigration policies and their harmful impacts on the UCLA campus community. And it consisted of staff and faculty across different campus departments and schools, and it was housed later on in the Institute of Research on Labor and Employment. And then later in October, Dr. Abel Valenzuela was appointed as Jean Block's special advisor to ASIP. But unfortunately, that time around, ASIP wasn't necessarily student-focused, student-led, and it was just so, I guess, like, it was so broad in the sense that actual concerns of undocumented students weren't addressed. And then in a memorandum from Improving Dreams, Equity, and Access, the Undocumented Student Org sent out this past spring to all of us. I'm sure you all remember you got an email from ideas in your inbox. Essentially, in the memorandum, it included that Chancellor Jean Block kind of disbanded ASIP when the Biden administration entered. But obviously, you may see or I guess not see anything coming out of UCOP. I think you guys got an email today, but it's more of in terms of like the federal loans and grants to the UC rather than protections for undocumented students. So this resolution is urging and requesting that Chancellor Julio Frank return to and essentially returning the Advisory Council on Immigration Policy, but this time around having it student-led and student-oriented. And we're requesting undergraduate student positions, including a student co-chair, representation from members of the international student community, and opportunities for collaboration with graduate student peers to provide guidance and policy recommendations fostered based from existing campus communities. And we also ask that Julio Frank meet directly with undocumented students, as well as international students on our campus so that they can have direct access to administration. That's basically the gist of this resolution.
Thank you, Diego. Any questions? Seeing none, could we please get a motion? Kara?
I motion to approve the resolution for Chancellor Frank to establish student-led advisory council on immigration policy.
I second.
Kara motions, Tommy seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 10-0 vote, that resolution passes. We're going to move on to a letter by Tommy, the undocumented support letter.
All right, so kind of echoing the same sentiments of Diego's resolution, this letter is basically calling university administration to take immediate action to support and protect our undocumented community in the face of harmful policies being advanced by the Trump administration. Protecting UCLA's undocumented students means protecting their parents, loved ones, and communities as well. So making sure that steps taken by the university take this into account. We urge the university administration to reflect on the values that UCLA stands for and to act in the best interests of our undocumented Bruins. In this moment of crisis, we must demonstrate the leadership, compassion, and unwavering commitment to justice that our university is capable of. So now is the time for bold action, and we are calling on university admin to do that.
Thank you. Any questions for Tommy? Jonathan?
Yeah, I was just seeing at the end where it lists all the names, that it's doesn't have all 15 of you. So if you do approve this, then it does, in theory, come from the mouths of all 15 of you. So if you're going to keep all of the names, please add everyone if this gets approved. Otherwise, please take all the names off.
Wait, any other questions for Tommy? Seeing none, could we please get a motion? Kara?
I motion to approve the letter of support for the undocumented community at UCLA.
I second.
Kara motions, Chris Espino seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 10-0 vote, that letter is approved. We're going to move on to Nico with the Bruin Card Funding Initiative proposal.
Hello, everyone. As I've said in many of my office reports, FSC has been trying to get a discounted Bruin card, replacement Bruin card initiative going with the Bruin card office for ever since I've been in FSC. So this is our third year in a row now. And this is the moment it's happening. So our original plan was to do it through the Bruin card office and have the discounts be directly authorized there. However, because of logistical concerns, we have to do it external. So that's why it's in the form of a funding body. It's more of like a funding initiative where it is still application based, but everyone gets approved and the application is just your name and UID. But because it's still technically a funding body, I need to have application or funding guidelines. So that's what these are. So I'm just going to read out some of the highlights, but it is basically just saying that everyone can get approved. So the Replacement Bruin Card Fund provides qualifying undergraduate students with a $10 discount, offsetting the replacement Bruin Card fee from $25 to $15. This discount is in the form of a $10 easy pay deposit that an undergraduate student can utilize to help cover the $25 Bruin Card replacement fee. And then the discount is funded by FSC. And it is the goal of FSC to help ease the financial cost of attending UCLA. And since Bruin cards are required for all UCLA students, staff, and faculty, the FSC advocates for fee-free replacements. So how it works is a student who needs a new Bruin card would apply to the funding body, which is just like their name and UID. And then since it's technically still a funding like body initiative, it needs to be approved at USAC. So once it's approved at USAC, SGA will process a $10 easy pay deposit. That's like the Bruin card deposit onto the Bruin card. And then the student can then use that $10 easy pay to offset the full $25 down to 15. So yeah, after they receive the deposit, they could visit the Bruin card office to get a new card. And then in the guidelines, it's just open to all undergraduate UCLA students, except for Financial Supports Commission staff and all of us, since we vote on the funding body. So sorry. And then each undergraduate student can receive 1 discount per quarter. And then applications are approved every Tuesday at USAC meetings. And then that's pretty much it for the Bruin card initiative. I'm happy to answer any questions or go in more depth to any aspect.
If someone loses their Bruin card on Wednesday, they have to wait until next Tuesday to get a new Bruin card.
Yeah, that's just unfortunately like the process we have to go through. But hopefully, if like this is successful, the Bruin card office will reevaluate their logistical concerns. So that will be a conversation I can hopefully have with them towards like the end of the year. Another option though is since it's a $10 easy pay deposit, they can just pay the full $25 and it can kind of be in the form of a reimbursement. Unfortunately, it's not a cash reimbursement, it's a easy pay reimbursement. So anywhere Bruin cards accepted, if you're on the Hill, like Laundry, if you're an Ah Hill resident, you can use it for like Panda Express or anything in Ackerman. So it's not like a perfect solution, but I think it's a start and it can still benefit students, just not like the perfect way that I was hoping.
Perfect. Any questions for Nico? Seeing none, could you please get that approved? Kiara?
Righty. I motion to approve the Bruin Card Funding Initiative proposal.
Second.
Kiara motions, Robbie seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 9-0 to 1 vote, that is approved. And we're going to move on to Laundry Funding Initiative proposal with Nico.
Yay. It's basically the same idea. So it's still an easy pay like deposit, but I was like, let's keep these good times going. So we have another funding initiative. And then this one is instead of like the full $10, it's a $5 easy pay deposit to help Hill residents pay for laundry. The target population in this, well, it's basically everyone. But I was kind of thinking like I'm an RA on the Hill, so I hear a lot of students complain both of the laundry costs, but also like first years when they first come to UCLA. It's an unexpected cost. They don't like factor in. And then international students who might not have currency in USD, it takes like them a while to adjust, or they might have to ask friends. So it's just, it's $5, so it can help some people. And then also in addition to the laundry fund, we welcome all UCLA students to utilize an eco-friendly laundry cart that we're going to be putting in all ORLs across the Hill. It's going to have eco-friendly laundry products. It's like the eco-friendly equivalent of a Tide Pod. So it's a Tide Pod with no plastic. And then it's also shipped in like no plastic packaging. So it's good for it's as good for the environment as laundry products can get. And then that would be completely free for any student to utilize as well. And then once again, the guidelines are basically the exact same, 1 deposit per quarter, and then no USAC officers, once again, so sorry, and no FSC staff. And then it would also be approved at USAC meetings.
Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, could we please vote on that? Tarim?
Motion to approve the Laundry Funding Initiative proposal.
I second.
Tarim motions, Kiara seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 9-0 to 1 vote, that is approved. We're going to move on to the Article 7 bylaw change with Carolyn. Either read through it or summarize the changes, whatever you want.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm going to start with a little bit of context. So as you all know, Good Clothes, Good People, they have a basic needs redistribution center that's in SAC right now. And they use fees from a referendum that was passed, I believe in 2020. And they were like told to leave their center in fall before the quarter began. But they were able to get an extension until spring break, but there's just been a lot up in the air as the referendum fees are pretty restricting. They're not sure if like what's going to happen in terms of like where they're going to be housed. And they're currently looking at staying in SAC, but that might have to have a financial agreement. So with all this in context, GCGP is looking to make the surplus or like the money that they have left over at the end of the year roll over like in to be used for themselves and to have that carry over fund go back into Good Close Good People. So I'll read the exact wording. Good Close Good People, GCGP, basic needs referendum carryover, the amount of carryover funds accumulated by mandatory student fees designated for Good Close Good People. And then Good Close Good People, basic needs redistribution, or sorry, yeah, basic needs referendum carryover shall be allocated to Good Close Good People to fund all expenses related to the survival, continuity, and growth of UCLA's GCGP Basic Needs Redistribution Center. So yeah, essentially they're just hoping to keep the referendum fees that they're using and spending almost all of every year, but keeping that additional one within their own center and ensuring that that can be used for anything that is related to their survival and growth, including getting basic needs items, possibly contributing to rent, or any other financial things that are working to expand their services. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me, but that's it.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you, carried in. We're gonna vote on that next week. Lastly, we have a discretionary funds transfer request. So in summary, every year, what we usually do during surplus, or sorry, during rollover, is it called now? Carryover. We usually fund stipends for all the non-referendum offices staff. And so that's what we did last year. However, there was 3 staff members from the IVP office that didn't end up getting paid. So what this discretionary funds transfer is asking is for us to pay those unpaid wages. And then we would reallocate money from this year's carryover into our discretionary. So it's just going to be added to the amount we pay staff this year from surplus as well. Any questions? Yes, Nico.
How much did you say the transfer is?
1,269.62. Any more questions? Chris Espino.
Yeah. Usually, I'm not sure how it's happened in the past, but senators are also paid a portion. Would that be coming out of discretionary?
As far as I know, senators don't get paid from surplus. This is separate. Jonathan, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Chris, these are prior year past due honorariums. So anything that you want to get for your senators this year through the carryover process, you would do later. This is just so that we can pay these people that are long overdue their money so we can pay them now and not wait until carryover comes around for this year.
Yeah, so we're probably gonna give staff members stipends again this year, and we're just gonna add that for the people that didn't get paid last year. In summary.
Perfect, thank you.
Josh.
Question for Jessica. Will my staff get like an email that their checks are ready, or how's that process gonna work?
Yeah, so we have the requisitions. So once we process them and cut a check, we will email them to let them know it's ready for pickup, and then they'll just get it from SGA.
Do you know what like the timeline is on that?
Since we have the recs in hand, it might be a tight turnaround to get them in this week's run, but for sure by next week we'll have them.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I motion to allocate $1,269.62 for my discretionary fund for the stipends of 3 staff members in the IVP office from last year.
I second.
Adam motions, Josh seconds. All in favor, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. All against, please raise your hands. And all abstaining, please raise your hands. With a 10-0 vote, that is approved. And I adjourn this meeting at 8:25 p.m.